All right, welcome back to Outmouse Labs. My name is Penny, and I'm glad you're here. Quick channel announcement: we'll be getting a new logo soon, which I'm really excited about, and we'll be kind of revamping things. I am trying to get a little bit more content out there a little more regularly, so we'll see how that goes. My health often gets in the way, but we do our best. So I got a comment on a previous video asking if I had a demo project, and I do not. So I thought maybe we would combine two different ideas, kind of a basic how to use the engine, kind of 101 course, and then make a demo project with that 101 course that would be available to folks using some of my plugins and some of my favorite ideas. So because this is a demo project, I am going to need to use all base assets. I can't use any of my assets that I've even edited from, say, MV Trinity, because I don't want to risk uh, giving away resources that I don't have the right to give away in this format. It also means I'm going to be a little bit more careful about what plugins I use. So this will be basic, but it will get us going. All right, so let's jump in. I'm looking at RPG Maker MZ. Hopefully you are as well. And what we have is just a brand new project. All I did was click new and filled in the name. That's it. Okay, so here we are. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my database, and I am going to make some immediate changes. And I always kind of just look through, see if there's anything I want to change right away. Do we have, yep, we have a paralysis. Okay, so first thing I'm going to add is a couple of common events, and I'm just going to set the names, and these are just ones that I always use. So I always have a check conditions or something similar. Actually, I think I'm going to call it check data. Check data. Then I always have a start cutscene, end cutscene, and then I usually have a save point. So those are ones that I always create. And pardon me one moment. I'm probably going to just copy these over. They're fairly easy to make, the events, but I think that it'll save a little time to just do it this way. So if you don't know, if you're in the Steam version on Windows, you can open a second copy of the program up and just move it over to another monitor or, out of the way, which can be really nice because you can then copy stuff over. So I'm going to go over in my other one to my common events. I'm just going to copy into a save point. So what we do here, we flash the screen, we recover the party, or we play the sound of party recovery, then we recover the party. We give a message saying the party is refreshed. We ask if they want to save. If they say yes, we open the save screen. If not, no. So now when I want to make a save point somewhere, I can just drop that in. My poll data is what I apparently usually call it. I can never remember these things. Poll data, check data, same idea. So we're just going to set a bunch of variables whenever we call this. The map X of the player, the map Y, the screen X, the screen Y. The difference there is map X is the tile that the player's on, so like 0, 1, 2, 3. And screen X is the pixel, so it might be like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 48. So it's a big difference, and you might need both. So grabbing each, the direction the player's facing, and the map that we're on, which is down here, in this case map 1. Now, the other thing you might want to do is name these variables. It can be really, really helpful so that you don't have to remember, well, what is map 2? To do that, what I would recommend is, and I usually do, actually, I can tell you, I usually do one as story progression. You can hit F5 and F4 to go up and down, which will really save you time in the long run. Let's see, player map X. Player map Y, player screen X, Y, player direction, and current map. All right. You can put spaces inside of the list or array that it's making. These are all strings anyway, but I'm just used to not having spaces in variable names. So technically what we are doing here is called Pascal case. It means starting with a capital and every word is capitalized. There we go. So we now have that. Oops, and I actually changed that one. So we need to actually go back to 2. There we go. Bada bing. All right, so that's done. Start cutscene. All right, we fade out any background music that's playing. We fade out any background sounds that are playing. We turn on our control switch 2, which we're actually going to change that to a different, well, actually that's fine. Fog switch, which I'll talk about later, and our cutscene switch. So now we have a switch on saying we're in a cutscene. Turn off our followers if they're on. Turn on transparency of our main character, and show a picture, which I will show you in just a second, and then wait 60 frames to kind of give it some time and also create an effect. So of that picture, we're going to open up our folder. We are going to open up another tab. I'm just going to go grab this picture. I made this picture so I can do what I want with it, and I am all the assets I made, you are welcome to use in any way you want. I'll go ahead and mark them probably CC0, which means you don't have to credit, but I would love it if you did. But I can only do that for the stuff that I made, so that's going to be pretty limited. All right, I'm going to grab my pictures I always use. I'm actually going to leave that one out just in case, because I don't want to accidentally take somebody's thing. Oh, and that's from MB2, so I'm actually just going to take this one. Okay, so what I did is I went and I got a picture, and in the pictures folder, I added a picture. Okay, so this is what the picture looks like. It is simply some black bars that are measured out to be the right size for a dialog box at the bottom. Okay. Now if we go back in here, this is valid. We can take a look. 0 black bars, there we are. We have it positioned at 0, 0, and that's going to make it look more cinematic when we play cutscene. All right, in cutscene largely does the opposite. Fades out the screen, tints the screen back to normal just in case. Gathers our followers once again, turns our cutscene switch off, turns our followers back on, turns our transparency off for our main, erases our black bars, and then fades the screen back in. Nice and easy. Okay, so that is all of my basic common events I always use. You are welcome to use these common events. Okay, let's see. I'm going to turn off that. I am going to leave the draw title on for now. I generally, so the main advantage to front view is you have to draw less sprites, and some people like the way it looks better. I think it's better for if you're making a single player game or single character game where like there's just a hero. But otherwise, I do think side view tends to look better. I like to do Z for my currency, so short for Zenny. Turn-based. I'm going to change it to time progress wait. That's just my preference. Followers on, display TP, enable autosave, enable message skip. Yep, all that I'm going to leave the same. Of course, we're going to turn all of this at some point. We will leave this alone for now. All right, I like to turn formation off, and the reason I like to do that is I assume in my cutscenes that the main character is the main character. So if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But that's what I'll be doing. All right, all that can stay the same for now. Screen width, I like 1104 by 624. It looks widescreen, and I just think it looks a lot nicer. So we can show you the difference here. It makes it this wider screen looking resolution. Okay. Next up, we will go back in here. For now, we're going to leave the UI area alone. We'll see if we want to increase that at some point. We probably will, but for the moment, we'll leave it alone. I like a font called Typey.otf. This is available on defont.com and several other places. Just make sure you include the OTF license if you use it. So I'm going to turn that on. I also like to turn the value of the font size down a bit. Gives you a little bit more room to play with. And since we are going to use that font, we need to go get it. Should probably just leave this open. In your fonts folder, you can grab a copy of the license and the font if you're using it. and it will be in the demo project. There we are. So now RPG Maker will be able to find it and use it. We'll leave all this alone just for the moment. A couple of things I always change here. I change this to health. I change this to mana. I change this to stamina. I change this to quit. And I change this to flee. These are just preferences for me, but if you want to use them, feel free. Okay. Save. Open it up. And we'll turn it to 20% across the board. Hopefully that won't be too loud. I'm going to turn the touch UI off. It's just my preference. And I like to take the command remember on. These are just my preferences. There we go. It does save that information in the saved folder, so you don't have to reset it every time, which is nice, even if you don't save the game. So there we go. If you want to turn the title back on, by the way, I have it set to skip title screen. If you unclick this and you hit play, it's going to show our menu commands, and sometimes you will need that. Notice that those are not reset. There you go. Okay, we're going to continue on with where we were. Off camera, I went ahead and set up my plugins. We're only using my plugins plus Casper's core and plugin commands from CGMZ over on itch. And then a bunch of plugins from the that come with the engine. If you want to find out where these are at, it's really easy. If you have the Steam version, you go to Library, you go to MZ, you right-click, you say Manage, Browse Local Files, DLC, Basic Resources, Plugins, and they're all in these folders right here. There's a whole bunch of them. They're all very useful. And if you're learning to make plugins, a lot of these you can use to get better at coding as well. So, and then lastly, this one here is, as far as I know, was originally done by Yanfly. It's a plugin that you leave off that's just used for organization. Okay. All right. Save. All right. So our plugins are working. Our engine is set up. After you do the basics, the first thing you want to do is run your game real fast. Hit F9. Make sure there's nothing weird in your debug menu. Hit F8. Make sure there's nothing weird in your console. This one with the source map is almost always going to be there. You can fix it with pixiemap.js, but it's a warning and you don't need to. Okay, so nothing weird. Everything's working. Just a reminder that you can hit Control to walk through events or walls in the debug mode, which can be helpful sometimes. Yeah, we have everything set up. These are just demos of plugins in action. We are ready to continue on with the engine. Okay, so we'll kind of structure this in the same way that the tutorial, the basic tutorial does. So we'll start by taking a look at the engine here. You have your events, your maps, your main work area, your toolbar, and your file menu. Tools include zooming in and out or returning to the one-to-one. You can also do this with the mouse wheel. Your database, your plugin manager, your sound test, your event searcher, your resource manager. This is how you import DLCs if you don't want to use your file manager. Your character creator, very, very handy. Your playtest. You have event mode, map mode. In map mode, you have 4 different layers or auto, your pencil, your rectangle, your ellipse, your fill or paint bucket, and your shadow editor. Nice and simple. Most of these are the same up here. Things to point out. You can open your folder to your game with a single click, which will be helpful. You will probably use that a lot. You can turn on the title screen or off. You're probably going to want to turn it on when you are testing something. Otherwise, keep it off while you're building. It just saves you a few seconds. Adds up. Update core script. Every so often there is a new core script. You can update it in the middle of your project. Often you don't want to do that unless there's a reason, because it can mess things up. But it's an option, and it's pretty easy to do. You can set any core, and it'll upgrade to it. Let's see. I think I'm going to sneeze 1 second. I'm going to try to mute myself. Hopefully you didn't hear that. Let's see. Yeah. New project open. Those are all pretty self-explanatory. Opening from the Steam Workshop or uploading to the Steam Workshop and deploying your game. We'll get to each of those. All right. Next up, in your map, the game starts with a regular map here. Since I have increased the size of my window, it's actually 23 by 13. And we're going to right click to grab this tile, turn on our flood, and flood it in. We hit play. Now the grass goes all the way across. And we can kind of decide a little bit more if we want to change the size of our menu. So this is how it looks at the base. You can stretch it out. I don't think it looks bad stretched out. Part of the reason I like this setting is the stretching isn't real bad. So I can just show you what that looks like for the sake of argument. UI area, if we change it to the same 1104, we hit OK. We go into the game. There it is stretched out. So it's up to you. It's a preference thing. This space at the top is caused by having, even though we turned off our touch UI, it's still making space for it. If you really, really dislike this, you can actually install a plugin called Zane's. I might copy it over. Let me see. I did not. There is a plugin that gets rid of that space because it gets rid of the touch UI more completely and readjusts the windows so there's not space for it because you're not going to use it. The thing about it is if you use that, then I believe it is not, you can't turn it on as a end user. It just won't be in the game. So usually I leave it so that the user can turn it back on. I don't mind giving up a little bit of screen real estate, but if it matters to you, it's there. Okay, so other things on our map, we have the tile set we're using. It's set to overworld right now. We'll look at the tile sets in a bit. Whether we want to scroll, if it's an overworld, you typically do want it to scroll. So if you go off the left edge, you'll appear in the right edge, for instance. Let's see. Encounter scripts or encounter steps. This is how many steps on average it takes to have an encounter. I think 30 is way too low. In dungeons, I'll typically do 50. And in the world map, I'll typically do 60 or so. All right, next up, we're going to look at background music. We're using base assets, so it's really, really limited. So we'll try to find one that's at least okay. Let's see. Let's look at the. Yeah, it's not awful. Okay. So we'll go ahead and do that as our background. Background sounds are things like the sound of dripping water or rain or fires crackling. There's a bunch of them. We're not going to use any on our world map though. Battleback is the background that shows up during a battle. We're going to just do grassland. And then in the background we'll do, we'll do grassland as well. So there's our battleback. And then if we wanted to use a parallax background, we could. That's going to pull from our images. And that is that. Okay, so, and then we're going to rename this world map. Actually, we're going to rename this one debug. And then we're going to copy this one. You can hit Control-C, Control-V. We're going to call this one world map. We're going to increase the size a little bit. We're going to make it 40 by 40, let's say. We're going to zoom out by, I'm using the wheel. Right click, fill it in. And then we're actually going to fill it in with ocean. So this is kind of a neat trick, I think. You then go to the coastal waters and you draw out your shape. For the purposes of our demo here, we're just going to have a single continent, I think. It'll be simple enough. All right, and then you then go to grass and you fill in that and you get your coastline almost bright just automatically, which is lovely. You can just go through and fill in where it missed one, which is way faster than doing it completely from scratch. Okay, there we go. So there's our coastline. On our small continent, really island, I suppose. And then you can keep drawing from here. This isn't a mapping tutorial, but I will say that typically you want to think in terms of what might be realistically there, so where land masses may have come together. So maybe these two, there was something here at some point and they slammed into each other. So it might be something like a ridge line here. And maybe this kind of was a fault that developed. So you have this. Again, try to keep geography in note. Rivers tend to come from mountains, so find some spots where there might be a natural river. And then just fill it in as naturally as possible. And there we go. If you go in here, you can actually put a single river. Oh, that's actually, that's funny. Here, there we go. And put a river underneath. It looks a little better, I think, but it's up to you. Okay, so we have a river. We'll do one more kind of like bay. So we'll have it go here. And we'll have it form a kind of bay. Again, not a mapping tutorial, so not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but just giving you the basics. We'll have a little bit of swampland. There we are. And a forest, which we're going to make pretty good size, so we're just going to do that and then flood. And then we're going to have a few like smaller forest around. This is just to preference. A few single trees around, which I think adds a bunch. I like to have the evergreens kind of with the mountains, so we'll do it like that. Fill those in. This is just my preferences, but whatever works for you. Okay, so you draw out your map. In your B, you're going to have access to things like bridges. Make sure you're on pencil mode. You can put in your bridges, your towns, or your castles. So we're going to have a town here. Towns are usually located near water, and they're usually located where there are resources like either forest or mines. So we're looking around, and I think like right here would be reasonable. And there might be a castle. We could have a castle just for the sake of it. And the castle, actually the castle might go there. So we'll put the castle here. And then we're going to put the village kind of down by the water a little ways. There we go. So there is that. And there'd probably be a bridge to go here as well. We will have, just so there can be something to do, we'll have a second town. And we will have we're going to fill this in. And that's not quite as geographically correct, but it fits our needs. So we're going to put in a forest here, or a cave system here. And we're going to have that cave system come out here. There we go. Back to A briefly. We got our dirt path. There probably would be a path between these villages because they know. There we go. Yeah, we'll replace our one tree. There we go. All right, so there's our basic world map. We have a town, we have a castle, we have a second town, and we have a dungeon. Nice and simple. We're gonna hit save. We are gonna go to event mode. I'm gonna put our character here and take a look around. If you hit F4, you can go to full screen mode. We're gonna look around. Doesn't look bad. There we go. And you would go in here. Okay. Oh. Those are left over from the debug room. We'll have to delete those. And as I mentioned earlier, if you hold down Control, you can pass through things like mountains. Okay. There's our world map. Got to see all the tools in action. Let me know if you have any questions about those. The only thing I didn't show here that can be really, really helpful is you can hold down the right click and copy whole sections, which can be really nice. Maybe you want to have, there we go. If you click a section, say this, and you hold down Shift and then left click, it copies the exactly as is instead of the auto tile, right? So that would be exactly as is. There's the auto tile. That can be really helpful in some situations. So you might hear that as shift mapping or shift clicking, and then right clicking. You can do the same thing over here. If you take the left mouse button, hold it down and drag, you're grabbing 4 tiles and they all go down together. Okay? So that's it for basic mapping. Next up, we will look at using a different tile set, which can be helpful. So we are going to, we're going to go to our world map. We're going to hit Enter to make a new map. We're going to call it Dallin Town. It's going to be outside, and it's going to be 25 by 25. We're in our new map, which is now underneath our world map, just for organizational purposes. Once again, we're going to basically treat it the same in many, many ways. We'll start by flooding. Thinking about our topography, we can look at our world map. It's kind of on a plain. There's some water down to the left. There's a road. There's really not a lot here, so we get to play with that a little bit. Sometimes a little bit of elevation can really make a map look better. So you may see that. And I think that we are going to do that in this case. So I think we are going to do this. So, Control Z, by the way, or Control Z will take it back, which can allow you to correct mistakes, which can be really, really nice. I'm now on layer 2. I'm putting down my guy here and just making it a little bit bigger. I am using a lot of the drag click. Okay, so that's going to do that. And then do this. Let's see. And then we'll do this. And again, this isn't a mapping tutorial, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. I'm just going to kind of show the basics. These little corners fill in those gaps, so it looks like there's a complete cliff there. Okay. Go back to auto. There we go. We can have a little bit of a border. So let's have a So a forest border, just I think that, well, no, there's no forest there. So we will not have a forest border. We're going to have a fence border, I suppose. You can use the rectangle to make sure things stay straight, which can be helpful in certain cases, like this. Okay, make an exit to leave town. We know there's going to be this, there's going to be this. Okay, and then we're probably going to have some buildings. I always like to have like a border around where people would be walking the perimeter, because I feel like it's like that's just something that people do. Is they walk the perimeter of their space. Like getting in your daily exercise. I know I like to walk the perimeter of my apartment complex, for instance. Okay. That looks pretty good. I think people would actually do this though. Okay, there we go. You can plan out. So from here, you just have your basic layout. Again, in the interest of time, I am going to fairly quickly build some huts. How you build your houses is entirely up to you. It is purely aesthetic. I like to do generally 2 roof tiles and 2 wall tiles for bigger structures like the manor house, for instance, or something like that. And then 2 roof tiles and 1 for like regular people's homes. Okay. Once you have one you like, if you just want to copy it, you can right click or right hold, and there you go. Make a copy of your houses. And then maybe we'll have a small field here. Fields are nice because they take up a lot of space. And you can grow maybe wheat in one and flowers in the other. And you can have a scarecrow. Yeah, and so let's finish this up real fast. Okay. I do not like the chimneys in MV. I like the ones in MZ much better, but in the interest of trying to keep it all default assets, we'll go ahead and use these. These look so bad. I think they're just not going to have chimneys. Okay. This is a neat trick. You can take the bottom of this and create a very natural looking like shrub or hedgerow, I suppose it would be. And again, same thing, take the sides to create fairly nice looking hedgerows. Go. Out of town. We can have an equipment shop, a item shop, 2 houses, a manor house, and then we'll have an inn. Our inn will be We'll make our inn a little bit different. Actually, we'll just so we can say we used it. These are the sea tiles. They look a little bit different. Let's use the yellow one here. You can make a lot of interesting shapes with this. And I think it kind of looks a little bit more like polished, maybe would be a good word. And we'll put in some high-end windows. Nope, not that one. Yeah, there we go. And a round door. Actually, to push you back one. And there we go. Just getting rid of that. There we go. There we go. Okay, so now we have that. And we'll just make a couple little things here. We'll put some bushes. And we'll put a little trifecta of trees here. Okay. And that will do. You can now see kind of a little bit of everything in action. I think it looks nice. Enough. And that is, so mapping an interior. There you go. Same things apply. You can do music if you'd like. There was one called like Town 1, which will just probably work fine. Yep, that's fine. We're not going to set a battle back, so we're not going to have battles in here. We will have people, maybe? Nah. I'll leave that alone as well. We're not going to set it to loop or anything because it's just a town. All right, here's our town. Wonderful. Next up, we can rig it up so that you can enter our town. So to do that, we go to event mode. And there are lots of ways to do this, but at the most basic, you say quick event creation, transfer, into town, facing up, and then you can Control C, Control V, so we can get into town. To leave town, we'll do the same thing, transfer. And again, you can absolutely do this other ways, and I think that there's very good reasons to do so, but as a start, this is completely fine. Always test, test, test. We start, we enter town, we have our town, looks perfectly serviceable. We leave our town, we go into the other entrance, works just as well. Wonderful, our music switches, we're good. All right, so that is it for mapping like exterior spaces and world maps. Next, we'll do some mapping of interiors. I'm going to take a short break, and I will see you all soon. All right, and we are back. So we're in a program called Asprit right now. You could use any software you'd like to make to modify or create resources. Asprit is used for making, well, sprites and tile maps and any kind of pixel art. We are going to create just a few assets that are going to be really, really helpful to us. We're going to make a custom tile set to start with. So tile sets are 768 by 768 by default. You can then go and open your project, which I do recommend doing because you can pull assets to use a technique called clumping. I do have a clumping explanation in some other videos, so check that out. But the gist of it is you use existing assets to make new assets by clumping them together or cutting them up to make new things. Because I'm using the base assets, I'm going to only use the base assets for my clumping and other techniques, so you'll see that. All right, so I do need something that is not available by default. We're going to open up the world. You can see our bridge that we used earlier. We can set our grid to 48 by 48. And for this, we want to turn on the snap as well because we're just going to be grabbing stuff. Hit M, grab a hold of it, take it over here to our new one, 48 by 48. Leave this first one blank in most cases. It gives you, the engine often wants this one to be a blank with a star, so it's like a blank over the top of characters. I'm not sure why, but it does seem to be, the engine seems to like it, so that's what I recommend. Okay, what we need to do is, it occurred to me that our hypothetical situation where they pass through the cave could be bypassed simply by walking through here. Now, you could allow the player to do that and then make this maybe really, really difficult monsters. So if they want to try to press through, they can do it. But it might be simpler to have this bridge not be there. Now, I don't know why there wouldn't be a bridge there, so instead I'm going to have the bridge be washed out, which means I need a damaged bridge sprite. So we pull in our sprite. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to erase kind of a jagged section that has been damaged by the storm. And then once we have that, we can hit M, make some of this faster anyway, and then turn on our eraser. And this is not a drawing tutorial either, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but I thought it would be useful to see at least the basics of creating custom assets. So again, 768 by 768. We create our damaged bridge. Maybe we want to have that line of damage be to pop, so we can take one of the darker bits and create that line. I think that looks better, but it's all preference. You can't mess it up. And if you're using some other pixel art program, you know, it's the same basic principle. Okay. You certainly don't have to do this. You can use all base assets and make perfectly good stories in games. But the more you customize, typically, the more you're going to stand out. And probably your story needs some things. So the reason we're doing it in this case is very simply that our story needs a broken bridge. So now we have it. We want to save it in our projects tile sets folder. I like to put a 0 underscore in front so that my assets are on top. So we'll call this 0 underscore AML custom tiles 1.png. Has to be a PNG file to maintain the transparency and so your engine can see it. You go into your engine. In this case, we're going to go to tile sets, well, database, tile sets, overworld, the D, load up our custom, go to D. This is unpassable, so passage, it's now you can't walk on it. Doesn't matter because it's unpassable. It's not a ladder, it's not a bush. It doesn't do damage. So it's all set. Hit OK. Now the D tab will apply. And we erase our old bridge, put our new bridge. Now, what if we want this bridge to be fixed later? Well, to do that, you make it an event. So, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Go to event mode, click on the blank. We're going to call it broken bridge. For image, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom to B. Actually, where it started at D. Choose our custom image. It's below characters. It doesn't do anything. Now there's a broken bridge, but at some point we're going to want it to be fixed. So we can say copy, paste, and instead of our broken bridge, we'll do the fixed bridge. So when do we want it to do that? Well, we want it to do that when we have saved the or when we've delivered the package, and we'll get to the story in a bit. So I know that's going to be true though. So I'm going to say control switches, delivered package, apply, on. Well, that's how we'll do it later. I apologize. Please ignore that. We want to turn it so that it's only on when the delivered package switches on. Okay, there we go. So now our bridge is broken until the delivered package, and it'll be fixed. And we'll deal with that story a bit later. Okay, so that is how you make a quick custom asset, and also how you have an event with two different pages so that it can be broken and then fixed. All right, we're going to continue on with our inside mapping. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this first real fast, kind of coming in from the future, is we're going to be definitely using some clumping techniques and some of the custom assets for our inside, because by default, the inside assets are really weirdly placed. And I will show you what I mean in just a moment. I'm going to grab some stuff that I might want to pull from. I think we might want... All right, so I'm opening up all of those. Don't know if I'm going to use them or not, but now I've got them. Let's show you why I think it's so important to do this. We're in our town. We're going to make one of the houses first, nice and easy. So we hit enter, or you right click and say new. We're going to say house 1. It's an inside. We're going to change it to 23 by 13, which is our default size. Zoom in a little bit. Go to our inside tile set and turn on our custom. Now, since one of the nice things about MZ versus MV is we can copy stuff. So we can go to our overworld D, hit copy page, inside, paste page. Right now we only have one tile, so it doesn't matter. But as you fill this up, not having to redo the passage every time will make your day. All right, so let's see why I think this is so important. Well, we'll just start by putting in, we'll look and see what kind of house it is. It's a brick house. So we're going to have, let's try this and see if this works. Yeah, I think that looks nice. Okay. Often a rectangle is a good idea here. We're just going to start by blocking it out. Obviously, we are not doing a mapping tutorial, so this is probably going to be very, very basic, but I will give some thoughts on it. Okay. Okay. All right. So here is the thing that is very weird that they made this choice. When you say place this counter, notice that it's not up, it's underneath the door, like the wall jamb. So it looks like it's kind of floating in the middle of the room. It doesn't look like it's up against the wall. It's very, very strange. And it doesn't look really much better when you're in game. So take a look. So you can see it's kind of like it's sitting underneath the jam, kind of floating in the middle of the room. It's very weird, but it's really easy to fix. The way we fix it, so going into our custom assets, going to the inside B, pulling those all, which I'm going to do this. It'll make my life easier to do it this way. Grab a hold. Take them into our custom, and instead of having them lined up with that, which is what it is by default, we're going to set it to be up a little bit. And how much is up to you. There's not a right or wrong answer. I've found that about the 1/3 of the way up works very well. We're going to save it, go back into our engine, go to our tile sets, go to D, set it so we can't walk through the back, but we can walk on the front. Hit apply. Copy that just in case. I like to keep it the same. And now look at the difference. I think you will find it is very apparent. So you grab both tiles by clicking and you stick it on there. It now looks like it's up against the wall. And even better, when you walk up to this one, your head sort of can't approach the towel. But when you walk up to this one, it's like you're standing at the sink or the stove. It's really a big difference. So that's why, even if you're just going to use base assets, I still recommend bringing them over into your own custom space and moving them up. Okay, so with that, we're going to start building our house, thinking about what we want to do. I do think that we want a kitchen space, which I like to delineate with a different floor. It just makes sense to me. So let's do this. And then our properly spaced guys. And then we'll go over here. We'll put a table there. And maybe maybe not that. Maybe a pie. There we go. Sure. There we go. I don't hate that. I think that looks pretty good. You can also space these back, and sometimes I think it is very much worth it to do so. It really is up to you. But you could have it, say, flush with that, and it might look better. But again, that's ultimately up to you. So if you wanted to do that, it's the same procedure. You'd go grab your chosen wine thing, Control C, Control V, and just line it up. Control C or Control S. Tile sets, D, don't walk through, copy, paste, apply. And now it's going to take up 3, which actually means you want to go ahead and do this real fast as well. Okay. So there you go. We are going to have some walls here. I like to do doubles when I do them. We're going to do one more down, I think. Yep. And we're going to have a okay. And we're just going in. This isn't a mapping tutorial, so we're going to keep it pretty basic. But I think it'll work just fine. Mapping is such an important part of what RPG Maker is, so you can't avoid it, and I wouldn't want to. It's actually one of my favorite parts as well. But trying to keep stuff relevant. There's lots of really great mapping tutorials out there. So, yeah, let's see. Okay. And once again, you have this weird flush with the door jam, which I do not recommend. Beds are one I definitely think it is better to go and grab. You can also make it so your characters can get in the beds if you do that. So it tends to work a little bit better. So we are going to continue on with our same exact process. In this case, you want this one and this one, but you can get into the center. Okay. go. And we're going to go grab, following the same pattern, a wardrobe. Next up, I'm going to show you some slightly more advanced ways to customize with this wardrobe. It's still the same basic process, but we have our wardrobe, but maybe we want to put some stuff on top. By default, it's very difficult to get anything on top. For example, why don't we do these right here? We bring them over, we set them on top, and they're a little bit big, so we're going to make them a bit smaller. There. And again, that's just, it's hard to do by default, so you can do it a lot easier this way. Maybe we want to put them over a little bit, and maybe we want to grab one other thing. So we'll grab this hourglass, bring it over, stick it in, make it smaller, add it to the top of our thing, and it just adds some pizzazz. Gives you a little bit of pizzazz, makes yours a little bit different than somebody else who's using the same assets. I'm going to save that. We're going to go in, as always, exactly like we've been doing. Set our can't walks. Apply. Shows up. Add it to our bedroom. And immediately it looks better. It looks unique. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and continue this in just a bit, and I will see you on the other side. All right, and we're back. So we're just going to finish up this video real quickly. So what we have is the completed interior house. What I did was use all of the custom assets I made, and as you see, I did make a few more. This is exactly the same process we were doing together. All I did was copy stuff over, move it around. In the case of the picture frame, I grabbed the picture frame and I emptied out the picture, and then I added custom pictures, such as the water bucket or the statuette from the sci-fi settings. That way you can make as many art pieces as you want, so it would be weird for different people to have the same art, right? So made all of that. Got it set up in my engine so that you walk underneath some of them and can't walk into others. So for instance, you can't walk into the art, but you can walk underneath these ones that are meant to look as though there's more depth to the building, or behind the last barrel. So that's all set up. This is our completed house. I'll show you what it looks like in game real fast. Okay, so you can walk behind these barrels or behind these guys here. You can sit at the table as much as you can easily. You can walk up to everything. You can look at the art or the clock. Oops, found an error. Go. And we're going to go ahead and fix that error. Actually, I'm glad we found it. So it's right here. We're going to go look and see what we did with the tile. Oh, we just forgot to put the X. There we go. And that will fix that. So we are done with the basics. So what we have done so far, just a quick recap, is we have mapped out a world map. We have mapped out a town, and we have mapped out a house. We have made some custom assets, and we have done a tour of the engine and looked at how plugins work. So that is where I'm going to close out this one. So this will be our RPG Maker MZ Engine 101 Part 1. Part 2, we'll continue on making our demo adventure together. See you then.